Welcome to Africa Media Australia. I'm Claude Sharadi, and very happy to know that you are again watching this new show. This is the second edition of the African Knowledge show that we've introduced recently. It's all about sharing knowledge, sharing insight, wisdom, skills, and experience and information that adds value to the lives of African Australian communities here in Australia, as well as the African communities back in the continent. Many of us are highly skilled. We have a lot of knowledge, but we don't always get to share that knowledge around to help empower others. And now we've thought that is an important thing for us to be able to set up a platform where everyone who has something to share can come and share their ideas, their stories, their expertise to help others build something from it. So today we will be talking to a gentleman who is from Burundi, and I will bring him on the screen now. This is Beltrand Habiyakare. Hi, Beltrand. How are you?
Very good, thank you, Clyde.
All right. Good to have you tonight. How's things?
Very good, and it's a pleasure to be here on this platform. Things are running well, although we are in lockdown partially because that's Melbourne that is in lockdown. Every other part of Victoria is free to move.
Absolutely, that's good. So we're gonna get. I'm gonna ask you to introduce yourself. I know a little bit about yourself. I know you are the president of the Burundian community in Victoria, but I will ask you to tell us a bit more about yourself.
Thank you. And yes, as you said, I'm Beltrand Habiyakare. Don't worry about the Habiyakare. It's difficult to say. But I've been in Australia for the last 14 years. I don't take that as a long time because I need to be here for maybe another 50 years. So I'm here to stay. In those 14 years, I have been able to do different things, including education, work in different settings, and I'm enjoying it. Yes.
All right. Now we're going to be talking about Burundi in a moment, but I would like you to first tell us a little bit about yourself, when you came to Australia and how you've been faring since, and tell us some of the maybe a short story about what has marked your journey in Australia.
Thank you. And yes, as I said before, I came here in 2007, so that's 14 years ago. And when I came here, as everybody else, I was in a cultural shock, like a shock of seeing different things and different people. All of a sudden, going into a shop and not know anybody, and then you walk from that feeling to knowing more people every day until 10 years down the track, where you find yourself into different things. First, I'm like a community leader now, and I've always been somehow. And then education, you've been to different schools. I've met too many people in there, and I want to share that I really have a passion for science, because that's what I did in my undergraduate, and I had 1 year of research into cardiovascular diseases. I will have a time to share what are my findings of my research when that time comes. But today it's about Burundi, and I am also now working as an education support person in one of the colleges in Victoria. What else do I do in Victoria? I'm also a member and maybe a vice president of the Victorian African Health Network, Action Network, VEHAN, which is an organization that is trying to educate the African communities and anyone else who would like to hear about the infectious diseases, the bloodborne infectious diseases like HIV, hepatitis C, and others. I'm also I'm doing a lot of other stuff. I've been an interpreter for like the last 10 or 12 years. I was interpreting in different languages, and the main ones being Swahili and Kirundi. I did interpreting in French, although my French with time, because we don't have too many people that speak French in Australia, with time it fades. I don't have a lot of it left, but I can still communicate and interpret in some circumstances. Yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Well, great. That's a lot of things about you. Thanks very much, Beltrand. Now, let's talk about Burundi. Burundi is a small country in Central Africa. When I say small, I mean the size of the country. Not many people know about it. What can you tell us? What can you tell us about Burundi?
Yeah, as you said, Burundi is a very small country, but back home we'd say that it's not about the size; it's about the heart. In Burundi, we have a big heart, so we call ourselves a big country in a way.
Yeah.
But if you look at the real size of Burundi, it's like half the size of Tasmania. But then we have a population of like 20 times that of Tasmania. So that's around 10 million people in Burundi, and who all speak Kirundi, like 100%, plus some that speak French and some that speak Swahili or both, and some that speak, of course, the other languages that surround us. Like in the north, we have Rwanda. In the east, we have Tanzania, and we have Congo on the other side in the west. Yes, that's Burundi. Yeah,
absolutely. So Burundi may be small, but you guys have got a big heart.
That's it. That's it. We are very, very proud of that.
Now, let's talk a little bit about the history of Burundi. I know that it was colonized partly by the Belgians and partly by the German, isn't it?
Yes. Before, when the European divided Africa among them, like among their countries, they assigned Burundi and a few other countries that surround it to Germany, and when the Germany was not in good terms with the whole world, he got kicked out, and the Belgium came. Belgium came in and ruled with fire and fury and whatever else you can think of until we got independence in 1962. Yep.
All right. So after independence, I know there was a little bit of a political upheaval for quite some time.
Yes, Burundi has never been as calm as it is as it has been since 2005. So that's in 2005. That's when things changed for the better. Things became a little bit stable. I would say that in the first years of independence, there were a lot of power struggles, a lot of people died, a lot of prime ministers. We lost prime ministers. We lost even the king in the process. We lost too many people, too many soldiers, too many business people, because the ruling party was all of a sudden against a part of the population, and anyone who thought in a modern way of sharing the patrimony of the country. It was on and off until we had a president in 1976 who at least brought some stability for the next 10 years. And then he was deposed. That's the culture in Burundi, like coup, where this other president who replaced this person. Do you want me to say the names? Because maybe it would be easier to say the names.
Totally up to you. I don't have any problem with that.
Oh, good. So the people that the president that ruled Burundi for during the big time, like the very worst part of the history of Burundi, is called Michel Micombero. He ruled that country, and there was a genocide that was committed against a part of the population. That genocide hasn't been recognized yet. I know people are trying to get that justice and that genocide recognized. But a lot of people lost their loved ones in the events that happened in 65, 68, in 1972. Too many people, too many bloodsheds, and that's where my parents actually fled Burundi in 1972. So they were not my parents yet at that time. They were still students, and they left and they went into Rwanda, and that's where I was born, in Rwanda. That's why sometimes I call myself a Rwandan, but I am proudly Burundian. After that president came another president. He was a soldier, but Jean-Baptiste Bagaza. He did well, relatively well. People praise him for having stabilized the country after the genocide, and also having caused the country to move toward the path of development, economic development, with building roads, building a few institutional infrastructures, and getting the people to really get along somehow. Unfortunately, he was also deposed in 1987. And then the next president, who was a soldier as well, Pierre Buyoya, he ruled that country. And there was also another, massacres that happened against one part of the population as well. The same part of the population that was targeted in 1972 and before. And he ruled this country until he finally agreed to making this country like a democracy, and allowed multiple political parties to operate. Unfortunately, in 1993, when there was an election of a new president, who was he's the one that we call him the hero, because the hero of democracy, because Melchior Ndadaye, His Excellency, he's late, he was killed, but Melchior Ndadaye is recognized as the first democratically elected president of Burundi. He ruled that country for only 100 days, and then he was killed in a very dramatic bloodshed. So a lot of people that we see in the refugee camps, a result of that coup that happened in 1993, of that killing of the president of Burundi in 1993, and then he was replaced by another president, and in Cyprien Tayamira. Of course, Cyprien Tayamira came after another president who assumed the interim. When the president dies, there is someone who always takes over for the first few days before they can find someone else to replace the person. So this president was also tragically killed in a plane crash that happened over the capital of Rwanda, in Kigali, and he died along with his counterpart of Rwanda, and that's what we all know about Rwanda and the genocide that happened in 1994. So that was like a spark to the genocide that happened in 1994 in Rwanda. But then in Burundi, that was the second president who had died in less than 3 months. So it was very dramatic in there. Yes, from that time, 1993, Burundi then started or entered into what will be a very long civil war, where the people that had always been oppressed felt like it was too much, and they started a war that they kept fighting until they reached an agreement, like a peace agreement, which was signed in 2003, which was then followed by an interim government that was a government of transition, I would say, which then ruled the country for the next 2 years and organized elections that brought to power someone new, led President Peter Nkurunziza, and he ruled this country for the next 15 years, from 2005 to 2020, and he organized elections that brought to power someone else who is now in power, His Excellency Evariste Ndayishimiye. When you think about it, Burundi has been into a lot of difficulties, including the people, the rulers that were killed, the presidents that were killed, the soldiers, the educated people that were all killed, plus the normal people that had to be killed in the process, and also those who became refugees in Rwanda, in Tanzania, in Congo, and in Europe. And we also ended up here. Not me, because I'm coming from Rwanda, but other people that are here in Australia. Some of them are a result of those turmoils that shook Burundi for a long time.
Okay, well, that's very interesting and a bit of a fast political history for Burundi.
Yeah.
So how many presidents altogether since the independence? I think about 7 or 8. I counted.
Yeah, too many presidents, but the first 3 were all a result of coups. Yeah.
They were all out of
Yeah.
power.
Coups, yes. And the 2 that followed were put in power by democracy, but then they were also killed. And then we had someone who ruled the country for 15 years, and he stabilized that country somehow. When you go to Burundi, and the peace and harmony and the social cohesion that you find among the people in the villages and everywhere is a result of the 15 years of peace consolidation and
And
like
that's
building
from,
that civic. Sorry.
Is that as a result of what Nkurunziza has done, or?
Yes, that's what late President Nkurunziza did for Burundi, and that's why he is hailed as a hero as well. He's the people, even in the villages, they know him as the unifier, someone who was able to bring the 2 parts of the Burundian population that were initially not able to share together on the same table and got them to work together. And the one thing that I struck my conscience was when in 2015 there was a coup. There was an attempted coup. They wanted to remove President Nkurunziza by force. But when you look at what happened in those days, those 2 days that the thing happened, you can see that both the Hutus and Tutsis got together and they fought against these people that were trying to destabilize the institutions. That is very that has never been seen before. Okay. Initially, like before, if the Hutus were preparing something, then all the Hutus would go on that side, and then the Tutsis would be in trouble. But or when the Tutsis were in, preparing something against the Hutu leader, then they would be all together, and then they would do whatever they want to do. But now,
usually don't work together.
Yes, that's what has happened traditionally. And when we say that the Hutus and Tutsis didn't work together, it's not about the people at village level. No, this is the leader, the soldiers, those business people. They were always in those factions. But in these 15 years, this president has tried his best and has unified the country in one people. And that's what defeated the coup attempt that was done in 2015.
So there's a bit of stability right now.
Yes, there is a lot of stability. And unfortunately, this president died 2 months before his term ended. And you can see the stability he had sown by looking at what happened after he died. Everyone was stable. Everyone was crying, of course, but they were all, like together in that problem that they had just encountered all of a sudden. And we had another president come in a month later, and the country is now stable again. So that means that somebody has worked so hard to keep the hearts of Burundians focused on one country, one development, one social cohesion.
Okay, that's good. Well, it's been quite upheaval. I mean, a very unstable country politically, but it looks like things are getting better. Now, let's talk about the people of Burundi. You mentioned earlier that all of Burundians speak one language, which is Kirundi.
Kirundi, yes.
Both Hutus and Tutsis in Burundi speak Kirundi.
Definitely, yes.
That's quite unusual because in many African countries you see a lot of national languages, a lot of languages with different ethnic groups, but Burundi, even though there's been historically a lot of division between the Hutus and the Tutsis, both in Rwanda and in Burundi, but they all speak one language in Burundi, which is that's surprising, isn't it?
It's very amazing. It's surprising as well, because it's not about the size of the country. Because I know some smaller countries that have more languages than what we have in Burundi. We only speak Kirundi everywhere within the borders of Burundi. If you go anywhere and speak Kirundi, everyone will understand you, and they will speak back to you. Of course, they have some other languages, or maybe the Kirundi that they have here is a little bit different in terms of academic Kirundi. But when you think about a language, any language has some slight differences across the country. That's even the English that we know here. When you go to some other parts, you speak English, but they understand you. They can speak back to you, but they have some slang or some words that they use that are so different. But in Burundi, amazingly, the Kirundi has remained the one strongest language that for everyone somehow. And you can see that when you cross the border, go to Rwanda, they speak a different language. You know, it's in Rwanda, it's somehow like Kirundi, but the intonation and some words are really different. You go on the other side of Tanzania, they have something that relates to Kirundi, but you can see that it's different. It's totally different. I can distinguish between someone who is in Burundi and someone who is on the border, on the other side of Burundi, in Tanzania or in Congo. Even if they try to speak Kirundi, you can still say that no, you're not a Burundian. You are somewhere else. Yes.
Wow. Okay. And what's still staying on the population side? So these are two major ethnic groups, the Hutus. And I know in Burundi the Hutus are a majority. Is it?
Definitely. Yes, 85% roughly, and the Tutsis are around 14%, and there is 1% of the other Twas. That's what we call them. But well, you know, you can ask me whether there is some morphological features that you need to look to identify that this one is a Hutu or this one is a Tutsi.
Yeah.
People say some people are in majority taller and slimmer. Some this or that, or the nose is like this, but that's all a lie, because when you think about it, when you might find someone who looks like a Hutu, but when you follow their lineage, you find them they're not Hutus, and that's why I think the president was the late president Peter Nkurunziza was right to say that this ethnic division that we have among ourselves in Burundi aren't real. They are a result of a political agenda that was introduced in Burundi by whoever had the interest of dividing and reigning. Absolutely.
Well, what can you tell anybody who wants to sort of know something about the people of Burundi? What sort of people are they? They're friendly? Are they, tell me something that I would like to remember about the people of Burundi.
We've met a few times. You know now how I am, so that's how every Burundian is.
I know you spend a lot of time in Rwanda, but maybe that is shifted a little bit. Are they all Burundis the same as you? Because it's in the blood, isn't it?
Yeah, it is in the blood that Burundians somehow, and this is what I've realized, that when you speak Kirundi, you can easily switch to speaking another language without having the influence of Kirundi. For example, if someone from Rwanda, for example, is speaking English, I can tell that this person is from Rwanda. If someone is speaking English from Burundi, you cannot tell that they're Burundians unless you actually know them, because Kirundi somehow is like a neutral language somehow. That's what my conclusion has been after realizing that someone, for example, from Sudan, when they speak English, you can say, yes, this is English, yes, but this person is from Sudan, or this person is from here and there. But in Burundi, it's very hard to tell that someone is from Burundi if you really don't know that they are from there. And coming back to the people and the culture in Burundi, we have, I think we have one of the best cultures about sharing. and sharing. We don't have a lot of things. We don't very rich, but and that's why I said before that we have a big heart. Whatever I have, I share with the people. I don't have to know them. If they need that help, I will provide that help. That's a feature for most Burundians, and we are very peaceful. We don't like quarreling or arguing a lot. This is we respect people. We especially we respect visitors. When I go to Burundi and I'm with someone from here, like the last time I went to Burundi, I had an Australian friend, and every time we went to a place, although they knew me, they would treat the other person better than me. Not that they feel like I shouldn't be treated well, but because they think, oh no, Beltrand is here, he's from here, so this is a guest. He's not a guest. He is a regular here, so the other person needs more attention. So this is how Burundians work. They take care of the people, especially those that they don't know. If you really go close to them, they work hard, very, very hard. Believe me, in the villages, some people wake up at 5 and they go to the land to cultivate, and they finish maybe 4, come back home, rest a little bit, and go back again. And they come back and they do the same thing over and over again. It's very when you look at what happens there, it's very it feels like it's too much. But they are used to that and they love that, and so they work hard. What they needed was peace. Now that they have peace, Burundi is changing, dramatically changing for the better.
All right, that's good. Burundi is changing for the better. Let's talk a little bit about the economy now. Obviously, the economy of the country is very important. What sort of natural resources is there in Burundi?
I think the best way to understand what natural resources are in Burundi, someone has to look at what is in Kenya, in Congo, in DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, in the eastern part of Congo, because when you look at it, that part in Burundi, they're almost like in the same line, and you go you go on the other side, in the south and in the east, there's Tanzania, which is also rich with different things, like the minerals and other things. Too many things. So Burundi has all of that. It has diamonds. It has cobalt. It has everything that you can find in Congo. You can also find in Burundi. We also have, and I think Burundi is the second reservoir of the rare earth material, like the rare earth. I think China is the number one, and Burundi looks like it's got a lot of it. And then we have nickel. Nickel is also very important, and we have a lot of it. I guess I haven't really looked into the numbers in terms of the volumes, but we have quite a significant amount of nickel in Burundi, and they have been mining nickel for a long time, but it's still there, and countries are still fighting over it. The powerful countries are fighting over it.
Yeah. And how's things been changing lately because of all the political instability that has been happening? You know that that has affected the economy. Now things are getting back to normal. Is the economy growing?
Definitely, the economy is growing, and one thing that I like about the economy of Burundi is that initially, before 2015, before that coup attempt, which, when you look deep, it was motivated by the outside powers, the outside countries that were trying to get hold of whatever is richness in Burundi. When that coup failed, many countries pulled out their usual support, like I would say, like the EU, for example, the European Union and other countries. They withdrew their financial support to the government of Burundi, but that was a very good thing, because that made the government to go back to its its senses. I think, because there's no country otherwise that can survive without a taxation system. So Burundi started a taxation system that has worked so well over the last a few years now, that now the budget, the state budget that was maybe at 52% from outside of foreign aid has now gone down to maybe 14%. It means that Burundi now is able to do its businesses for 85 or more percent, by its own income, without depending on the foreign aid and things. So to me, that's a huge improvement in this short time. And when you think about it as well, this means that Burundians have learned that you can't depend on the foreign aids, because that is first of all, it makes you lose that ability to be independent. So now they've started working hard. Those who are in the villages, they work hard to get food. They work hard to preserve food, to keep food for longer, knowing that there is nobody else who's going to bring anything. There's one particular feature that I liked about the progress that Burundi has made. That this is that the last two elections were fully funded by the people of Burundi themselves. So that's a very big achievement. And I don't know how many countries in Africa, for example, will do their own election by the funding from the people of their own countries. So Burundi is a special country in that sense.
Absolutely. A lot of African countries rely on foreign assistance to organize elections, but there is a bit of a change now. Even in the Congo last elections, because the previous President Kabila wasn't having a good, it wasn't in good terms with many of the traditional funding providers. He had to fund the elections, but he was also doing that because he didn't want anybody to come and control what is happening to control. Anyway, that's another issue. So the economy is doing well, and Burundi is sort of growing again. Do you foresee stability for a long time with the current president? By the way, what's the name of the current president?
His Excellency Evariste Ndayishimiye.
Yeah. What do you think about him? Is he a good man? Is likely to?
He's a very good man. He's a very good man. I also had a chance to meet him in person before he became president, and I know that he had too many good projects for Burundi. He wasn't the leader at that time, but he was the leader of the leading party, the political party in power. So he had a lot of say, and whatever program and project that he had there were very great. Now that he's the president, I'm very confident that Burundi is heading in the right direction with him at the helm of the state matters. I am also, I've also seen how he's been able to go through the whole country before he became president, to every village, meeting people, speaking to them, being very humble, very approachable. So I think that those are qualities that we didn't see before in other president, before late President Peter Nkurunziza. It was very hard to see a president with your eyes. Some people in Burundi say that if you ever see a president with your eyes, then you don't need to see anyone to, you don't need to see an eye doctor. But it's very rare. But since the late President Peter Nkurunziza, and how he mingled with people, how he embraced them and hugged them, and sometimes washed their feet, it was very humbling experience to see a president being very close to the people. I was looking at some imageries that I sent on Facebook about how the current president was sitting down on the grasses, eating potatoes and drinking from something called the calabash. I don't know the English word for it. It's you know what I mean? Drinking some beer or whatever it is from that. that's very traditional, and that's very humbling experience for anyone, to see a president doing that and his wife on the side. So it's very uplifting in a way. It means that the president is doing exactly what the previous president, who is the beloved president of the people, was doing, plus what he might do that surprises that he has that we don't know yet, but we think it's all going to be good for the country.
What about corruption? We know that many African countries, that's the biggest problem, corruption in the system.
Yeah.
How is this president doing?
Yeah, so we know that corruption is a cancer of in many countries, including the powerful countries. We hear reports of big companies doing this and that, and in different countries, in the US and everywhere. But when it gets to in Africa, the corruption that happens there is very generalized. It's in every, like, it's very it gets to the roots of at the grassroots, with the people at the lowest level to the high level. And what this president is doing is magnificent in a way. He has vowed to fight corruption, in all its forms, starting from the security forces, the police, and every other government official. There's a lot of come again.
Is he being successful? Obviously,
it's very hard. It's very hard for anyone to say that your measures against corruption is succeeding in a very short time. He's only been in power for it's now 1 year. I think 1 year. Yes, 1 year is not enough time to actually know that your measures against corruption have worked already. But he's doing his best. He's trying to remove those avenues where corruption is potentially high, and also talking to the people, getting them educated about their rights, and because when you know your rights and you have the way of expressing your views, your complaints, and he instituted some suggestion boxes in every corner of the country, so that if you feel like someone has done something that is not legal, or somebody has deprived you of your right or something, that you can put your views in those boxes that only his confidants have the keys for, and they check those ones on a regular basis, and they take actions. When you look at the things that are changing in many institutions in Burundi, you can easily see that someone is doing a lot of work to remove some parts of the cancer of corruption in the system of governance in Burundi.
Well, that is good. Let me just remind those who are watching, you're watching African Knowledge, a show on Africa Media Australia. Unfortunately, we're still having some issues with our technical issues for the broadcast tonight. We at least are still live on Facebook and YouTube, but there are some issues there that we're not able to take comments or questions that we would normally be able to take live. So we apologize for that, and maybe next time we'll be able to address that. So I'm speaking to Beltrand Habiyakare, who's the president of the Burundian community in Victoria, and we're talking about Burundi. We want to share knowledge about our countries, because one thing that is actually a fact is that many of us Africans learn a lot more about other non-African countries, including Western countries, than we learn about our own African countries. Before I came to Australia myself, I knew very little about many African countries. I met very, very little non-Congolese. Only in Australia that I get to not only meet a lot more Africans, but also be able to learn a bit more from them, because what you learn from school is different from what you can learn from people. So we're wanting to utilize this platform to enable people to share your knowledge about your country, and be able to inform and educate people from your country's perspective and your own personal perspective, because a lot of the information that we learn at school in history books is not necessarily what we ought to be learning. Bertrand, let's talk about that. The African knowledge, even when we go to school, is still dominated by a lot of colonial content, and we
Mm.
don't get to learn much about other countries. Why do you think that is the case, and what should we do to address that?
Yes, you can say that again and again because that's what is there. You go into the books, even in primary schools. The books are still like printed somewhere in France or Belgium or somewhere else, and the stories that are there somehow reflect not the stories of on the ground, but the stories from somewhere else, and it's very frightening to learn that. For example, I knew about Australia and the states and the rivers um, and everything that Australia has. I learned that in grade 5. That's how early we started to learn about the other countries. I didn't know a lot about Rwanda. That's where I was, and I definitely didn't know much about Burundi, where I was meant to be. And I only learned about Burundi in my own time by my own effort. So you can see that in Africa in general, people have a lot of knowledge. When I visited one of the universities in Burundi, they told me that they had around more than 100 people that hold PhDs. And you go, really? If we have as many people that hold those high, degrees, like high, that's high achievements
Mhm.
in education. Why do we need these books, for example, that are printed from outside? And it's not that they were written by a Burundian and then they were sent somewhere for printing because maybe someone will say, "Oh no, because of the money, because of this." And no, it's because there's not that culture isn't there. The
Mm.
culture of learning about your own country. For example, when you are in Australia, even when you come here for like an adult and you're learning English here, they take you to different places, different forests, different, touristic areas to see the beauty of Australia. We don't do that back home. There's a time when I visited Bujumbura, and there is a museum in Bujumbura. It's called like a living museum, which means that the animals that are kept there are alive. And you go, okay, how many primary schools, for example, have visited this area? Has there been any secondary school at least visiting this museum to see these animals that they learn in their books and they see just the pictures? No, they haven't been there because we don't have that culture to get to know our country very well, and as a result, some people from outside know our countries more than we do. They know where our natural resources are. We don't know. They know where there's a river that has this and that lives there. We don't know. When you think about it, I went to the south of Burundi where the source of River Nile is the southern, the most southern source of origin of River Nile is in Burundi. I went there and someone, an European explorer, had built a big stone monument to show that this is where the River Nile begins. That is an European person who built that. What about Burundians? Do they have anything that they have built somewhere to mark the importance of that landmark and that area of their country? No. How many people do we have that visit those touristic areas places that I found in Burundi? The park, for example, the Park Ruvubu, for example, the rivers Rusizi and other rivers. All those things. No, people aren't. They don't think that's a very important point to make. They are happy to get you to memorize all the countries of Europe, all the countries of Asia, all the countries of America, and they make you learn all of those and the president of those countries as if those presidents will remain there forever. It's very disappointing somehow, and I would encourage the governments of Africa to use the knowledge base that they have to produce their own learning material, because then we will be producing real patriots for our countries. Otherwise, when I learn about Australia in grade 5, then my heart is only telling me that I need to go to Australia to see what Australia looks like, because I learned about it in grade 5. So how can I get to Australia? It says it's good, but Burundi has some good, beautiful places too. We'd never get to see them until we are outside and we go back to sea. It's really disappointing. Yes.
Absolutely. But then when you look at how things are done right now, actually, before I go to the next question, let me just acknowledge some of those who are watching us who've started writing questions. So things are improving a little bit. We are able to now get some comments and questions, unlike before where some technical issues prevented us. So I acknowledge Samuel Guy, Gokuk, and Kaleki. Keleki, sorry, is asking, would you recommend one to invest in Burundi? He says he's investing in Rwanda at the moment, and he has his eyes in Burundi and Uganda. What would you advise?
I would advise people to invest in Burundi, definitely. Burundi is very stable, and they're welcoming the external investors. I personally have started investing somehow in mental health. It's not an investment per se. It's like some help that I bring to my country. But everyone else who wants to invest in Burundi in any field, any area, there is some department in the Foreign Affairs Ministry that are in charge of that. That means that Burundi is giving a lot of weight to the investment sector in Burundi.
And that leads me to the next question, which is the role of the diaspora in contributing to the economic development of their home countries. When you see what is happening in Australia, for example, there are a lot of Africans who are active professionally and in the community. They do a lot of things in terms of the culture and celebration and all that sort of thing. But the economic role, the diaspora, other than sending money, remittances for family assistance and all that sort of thing, it's still, quite limited. There's not much that is happening in terms of people actually going and investing into African countries. I know there are some countries where the diaspora is quite active. For example, Ethiopia, diaspora is investing quite a bit, but many other countries where there's still very little that is being done. What should we do to encourage the diaspora to contribute to the economic development of their home countries?
That's a very good question, Clyde, and I'm glad that you brought this up, because when you think about it, the Burundian diaspora, for example, in the whole world, around thousands. Like there are many thousands of families living in Europe, in Asia, in America, in Australia, and many other places. And when you think about the power, this is the money power that they have. It's a lot of money that they have. Individually, they don't have a lot. When I say they don't have a lot, of course, they have a little bit more than someone who's in a village of Burundi, but that's not enough money to do an investment. So my approach to the diaspora and the role of diaspora in the development, economic development of our countries, is to think about how we get together as a diaspora to actually work in collaboration, in cooperation, because one person might be able to build a house, but one person might not really build a good hospital, for example, or a good school that like a modern school, something like a good shop, a supermarket. One person might not be able to do that. If they did, it wouldn't really be as lucrative and as good as if there was a group of people. If of course I don't expect that everyone in the diaspora will be with someone else, with everyone else to do one project. But if we get in groups of like 100 people doing one project, that's a good project. That's a project that could show a better image of the diaspora. Plus, when you think about the contribution of the provinces in Burundi has 17 provinces. When you think about the contribution of each of the provinces, you can easily see that the diaspora outside of Burundi, the Burundi diaspora has more power than that of one province. So I'm thinking the diaspora, the Burundi diaspora, for example, should be considered as a province number 18, for example, and you do what is within your power to, first of all, be together, do some project that you agree on. There are too many areas to invest in. There's agriculture, having maybe a good farm that has beautiful cows and beautiful crops and all these things that generate this and transform food and do a lot of. There's too many things that you can do in any of the sectors that are there to be invested in. But one person can definitely not do what cannot do much.
Cannot do
Really.
much. Yeah, but one of the issues that also is connected to that is the fact that for that investment to really be fruitful, not only that, obviously people from the diaspora have to make an effort, have to invest and plan that properly, but also the economic condition in the country back in Africa also have to allow it. There's a lot of issues in my own case with the Congo, for example. You see that business. There's a lot of business opportunities, but there's still a level of dysfunctional economic infrastructure and system, which doesn't allow the investment to yield fruits. What do you think the diaspora should be able to do to encourage the leadership back in Africa to be able to improve things, to enable more investment to flow into the country?
Thank you very much for the question. I think I said it before that, for example, the diaspora, as part of an economic development machine of a country, we are outside, but our hearts and our families they are in Burundi, for example. So my thoughts are always going around and saying, what can I do in Australia, or what can I do in Burundi? Because that's definitely where I have a bigger family there. Now, when you think about it, the diaspora has a lot of to offer. There's knowledge, there is experience. We can easily give that experience, share that knowledge if we are in groups. One person cannot just stand from here and go to Burundi and say, hey, I need to talk to you. This is what I think should be happening. But if we are organized in our own individual countries and in the world as well, we can easily send people, like delegations to those countries. Like if Burundi, for example, is a country that I need to talk about now, we can send delegations to Burundi. See, this is what is preventing us from investing here. There's this barrier here. There's this and there's that. So when the diaspora is united, at least in some, like in the individual countries, we might have a bigger say and influence things over there. Plus, we have that capital that we're bringing in. So when you have a capital, somehow you also have the power to ask for some ways of doing the business in a way that you think is going to benefit you and the country. We have the power now. We have the ability to say all of those things, because the government of Burundi allows the diaspora of the Burundian diaspora to have recognized leaders. Like in July, last July, we had the diaspora meeting in Burundi. The Burundi diaspora meeting in Burundi. It's called a diaspora week. In every July every year. So that is one area where the government has done very well. It says, yes, I recognize that the Burundi diaspora is part of Burundi, so we reserve this 1 week for you guys to come over here, and we can talk, and we can we can show you the investment opportunities, and you can tell us what you think you need to do this and that, and if you want to see how powerful the Burundian diaspora has become, you have to see what happened like in July when, and this has been happening every July, that the president himself comes to the launch of activities of that diaspora week. That means that he has a lot of consideration for the diaspora of Burundi. And that means that it translates into everything else. If we giving advice, if we are giving our point of views, and if we are also asking for more information, then we have like a way, that a free way to getting those done.
Let me acknowledge those who are watching and making comments and questions. I've got Dr. William Abur, who says he likes the concept of team investment. And that's obviously good. If you're going to do things back in the home country, usually doing it alone is pretty risky. If you do it in a team, you have more chance of success. We have Jean-Luc Moalo, who's watching from Kinshasa. And we have Sean Kini, who says, what is the main industry in Burundi? Yeah, maybe answer that question. You may be interested in investing there. What's the main industry? What's bringing most of the money in Burundi?
That's a very good question. And I think the easiest answer is that in Burundi, everything is like raw. Everything is like at the beginning, that any industry you can be invested in, and you can bring your own way of investing in that industry, because everything is somehow, from the agriculture to the other businesses, to the mining, to the transport, everything needs people to come in and fill a lot of gaps that are there. So investment, I would say that there's no industry that you can invest in Burundi.
So it's a green field. You just go there and get your Caterpillar machine and.
Do you want to go into transport? Yes, bring buses. Do you want to go into petrol importation? Do it. Yeah. Build your petrol station there. Do you want to do agriculture? Go in there. Do you want to do mining? Yeah, go and negotiate with the government. What do you want to do? Do you want to build roads? Do you want to build houses? Do you want to change whatever? There's a lot of it's like a fertile land in many ways. Like when I say fertile, I don't mean for crops only. It's for any investment, really.
For any investment that can be made. Well, we're approaching the end of the show. We still have about 5 minutes before we finish. I suppose, what can you... tell us something that you would like people to remember about Burundi. They may not have had an opportunity to meet a Burundian before, or they may not have opportunities to learn much about Burundi, but today, as they're watching this, what should people remember about Burundi?
I think maybe the best way to remember Burundi is that it's a small country with a big-hearted people, the people that are welcoming, the people that are, they are very friendly. And we have a government that is also friendly, that is also allowing, preparing and making the environment of investment very conducive. We have connections. We have a consulate in Perth for Burundi, and so that could also be used. And Burundi, I think everyone who knows Burundi knows that there is a very interesting culture, a culture of drumming. If you Google Burundi, you will see the drums, and people are very drums, and the big, huge people. When people are beating those drums and dancing to them, to the rhythm that they're producing, it's very nice, and it's been it has broken broken record, and now the drum of Burundi is part of the, how do we call that? There's an organization, international organization, that recognizes those cultural landmarks and those cultural things. Is it UNESCO?
UNESCO, I think.
Yeah, UNESCO. UNESCO has the Burundian drum.
They call it World Heritage something.
Yes. That's one feature that every Burundian has on their mind when you talk about Burundi. When you hear the drum go, is that my country's drum? Because that's yes. Overall, Burundi is welcoming, and we have the best government, I think, in the whole world. And I have high hopes that the Burundi is heading in the right direction.
Maybe just one last question. Tell us about the Burundians here in Australia. Where are they living? Are they mostly in Victoria or other states? And give us a little bit of an idea. Burundians.
That's good. That's good. And yes, in Australia we have a few Burundians. They are in Perth, in Queensland, in New South Wales, in Victoria, Tasmania. We also have Burundians in Darwin, but I think the majority of Burundians live in Queensland.
Queensland, okay.
Queensland, and then there's a lot of people in Adelaide as well, and then we maybe third in Victoria, followed by Perth.
Rough figure, how many Burundians would be living in Australia?
In Victoria, we are like 400 now, but in the whole of Australia, in the last census, which is 10 years ago, there were around 2,500. So remember, that's 10 years ago. So now, if every family has added one person, so maybe now we are reaching around 5,000.
And you can count African
figure
to produce kids, yeah?
Well, yeah. What do you do when you get to Australia? They tell you can never be a prime minister until you are born here. So I think they need to make babies here.
Just have one for dad, one for mom, and one for the country. So yeah,
that's three. That's it.
Voila. You can multiply by 2 or 3. All right, Beltrand Habiyakare, I want to say thank you for your time to African Knowledge, as this new show on African Media Australia. We appreciate that you've given us time to talk about your country, to talk about the people of Burundi and the opportunities that they may be there, and the fact that Burundians in Australia have a role to play to promote their countries economically, to bring investment into the country. That's one way of helping the country, because there's still a lot of need in many of our countries back in Africa, and we have to play a role. And I want to acknowledge all of you who've been watching. We apologize for the technical issues we've had initially. The initial link that we distributed did expire and could not run anymore. And then when we reset that, it still had some little issues, but looks like everything has gone back to normal for the last 10-15 minutes. I can see the comments and questions. So hopefully we will not have those issues again next time. We will continue to have this show daily, every night, Monday to Friday on African Media Australia. If you have something that you want to share, and I'm sure many of you, if not all of you, have something that you can share, whether it's your country, your culture, your expertise as a professional, whatever that you can share that is of value, contact us. We would like to have you on this show. It's all about sharing the knowledge and communicating to add value into our lives. Beltrand, thanks again, and we hope to see you next time.
My pleasure. Thank you very much, Clyde.
Thank you, guys, and you can contact us through inbox if you want to come onto the show. Thank you.
All right.